Guitar like that, his rhythm guitar playing is just his own invention.
If you listen to those guitar licks on that song, you can hear this, that's where I think the Nashville influence is coming in. I hear some country western string bending going on in that song, and, you know, calm, beautiful, placid lyrics, beautiful stuff.
The music that Jimmy wrote that stands out for me personally is called Castles Made of Sand. And that's the story of our life story. You know, about my mother and father arguing in the first verse. I'm the little Indian boy who, before he was 10, you know, played war games in the woods with Indian friends. Okay, that's my verse. And then the last verse is about our mother. And when Jimmy came home, he said, this is our song, this is our family song, and it's called Castles Made of Sand.
In January 1968, the Experience were about to embark on the biggest and most demanding tour of their career. Longtime friend and tour promoter Pat O'Day was involved in many of the band's gigs.
I had started rock and roll dances early on in my radio career, and the rock and roll dances had evolved to the point that I had about 50 dances going in the state, and I would bring in entertainers and could use them for, you know, multiple nights, hire them for several weeks. But then our first real, total full-time client was Jimi Hendrix. And little did I know that Jimmy went with my company because of our relationship way back earlier.
The next time I saw Jimmy was in Portland at the Portland Coliseum. Was playing with Vanilla Fudge and 3 or 4 other bands. It was just really impressive to see Jimmy on stage. Kind of made us all really proud, and to see that somebody could do that. I think somebody from Seattle, even though there were other folks from Seattle, this was somebody in our class that made it, and people all over the world thought he was great, and I think it was just a real boost to everybody in Seattle. Took real pride in it.
And Vanilla Fudge was opening a show for Jimi Hendrix at the time, back in the late 60s. And I can remember going backstage, and the first time I saw this guy, it's like this incredible looking dude. It's like probably the first actual black hippie that I ever saw. He was just dressed in these real colorful vests and beautiful pants and scarves around his neck, and he had this incredible hair and just had this big smile on his face. And he was very easy to get close to. I mean, during that tour we did with Vanilla Fudge back in the late 60s, we used to hang out. I used to remember going up to his hotel room. We used to order dinner for, you know, for some of the guys in the band, and we used to, you know, just talk, laugh. I mean, obviously he was, you know, the biggest superstar on the planet at that time, but he had a lot of respect for, you know, other musicians and everybody, you know, on tour with him.
When Jimmy first came home, he said, Leon, hey, here's some money, come to LA. And you can, you know, you can be with me now. And I go, yeah, whoa, wow. You know, so I flew down there. You know, I had a limousine waiting for me. I was living at the Beverly Hilton Hotel, and I'm like 18. You know what I'm talking about? So I'm like, I'm really tripping. And I meet the Beatles and the Rolling Stones and Eric Burton and all these people. I'm overwhelmed with stuff, right? So I began to, like, start to feel it. So I'm just having fun now. You know, Jimmy's going to San Diego, Frisco, everywhere else, and I'm still having fun in LA because I am the shit now. I'm 18, got a limo, living in the Beverly Hilton Hotel, and Jimi Hendrix is my brother. I am way cool. You know what I'm talking about?
Always different, Jimmy incorporated all of his time-tested flamboyant stage moves into his frenzied electric mixture of blues, R&B and rock at each of his performances.
Every time he performed, it was different. It would never be the same. Jimmy had an absolute, you know, amazing, well, not bag of tricks, but he had an arsenal of ways of playing the song differently, effortlessly. And that's what really sticks in your mind. And so any time you ever saw him perform, it would never be the same, never. I mean, even the length of the verses or this or that, it would always be different. It would always change with the mood of himself and all the location and, you know, and the feedback from the audience. So we talked about this, and yeah, it was like, you know, it was like free-form jazz, you know. You have a loose framework, but at the same time, Jimmy was such an accomplished musician and so talented that that's what he wanted. I mean, for him to, you know, the actual concept for him to actually remember exactly note for note a solo or the way a song went was like, you know, rubbish. You know, there would be no reason for him to do that. Not with his talent, you know, because he knew so many ways to actually make the song sound different.
And I think Jimmy inside felt that instrument was the boss, that instrument was making demands on him, and it was his job to entertain that instrument and to challenge that instrument.
Once he made it, he was doing the same stuff that he was doing here, but he had all the equipment and he had all those Marshall amps, but he was doing the same stuff that he was doing when we were younger. I mean, he was that good. I mean, but he had new equipment.
And he was spectacular. He could play. There was the Chicago guitar players. They all used to play behind their back with their teeth. In all kinds of ways they play guitar, and Jimmy picked it up from them and outdid them, did better than they were doing.
I suspect that people looked at him and were, you know, baffled by what he was doing. I think the general public did. I think it must have taken at least a couple of years for it to sink into anybody, and it's taken 20 years for it to sink into a bunch of other people, because now, of course, he's probably much more popular than he was then. I think just people couldn't understand what he was doing. I mean, I think they were highly entertained by him, but I don't know how many people really got it, you know, really got the music side of it.
It is well known that Jimmy was self-conscious of his singing voice, but with much coaxing, he began to sing with more confidence.
Well, what we know from Jimmy's boyhood friends is that he was terribly shy as a kid. And in the early bands, he did not sing songs. He did have, obviously, a love for the blues, and some of his early bandmates have told me that they did a long blues song in those days called Jimmy's Blues, which was an original, and but he didn't sing. He played it. And so it's well known that Jimmy, he talked about it in his own interviews, that he didn't like his own voice. He was really self-conscious about his voice, and it's also well known that what finally, you know, clicked the switch for him was when he heard Bob Dylan, and he said, this guy has hit records, this guy has a big record contract, this is one of the biggest music stars in the land with that voice, you know. I think there's even a famous story of him calling his dad and saying that, you know, man, if Dylan can have hit records, maybe I should be given singing a try.
Jimmy's confidence as a singer in the beginning was he didn't think he could sing. And it took a lot of coaxing from Chaz and everybody around him, you know, to get Jimmy to sing, you see. I mean, if Jimmy was going to sing in the studio, he'd want all the lights off, you know, he might have his back to you, you know. And he didn't have the confidence that he could sing, you see. But we all said, no, Jimmy, you're sounding great, you know. Please go ahead. And that was his shyness. He never thought he could sing, but he could. And the other interesting thing about it is